Holy Hemiola! We're learning Scriabin's Canon in D minor. This is a piece that I love. I think it's very beautiful. You'll have to use that 2/3 rhythm a lot in this piece. It's really great for late beginners, early intermediate piano players who want to learn Hemiola, which is the 2/3 rhythm. It's really fun. Let's jump in. It sounds like this. When I first found this piece, this is the original engraving of it. And what I ended up doing was I started practicing it. First of all, I'm used to Scriabin's music being way harder because the only thing I've ever learned from Scriabin was his 10th piano sonata. And so I found this little piece and I was like, this is amazing. Why did I not learn this when I was first learning piano? I found this engraving and I started doing, and then here in the second measure, I started practicing this 2/3 rhythm in one hand, which is fun, but then I practiced it like that, kind of like a chump for a little bit and realized, oh, there's a way easier way to do this. And so what I've done is switched it around a little bit for you, redistributed it in this new engraving so that, you know, if it's played by the left hand, it appears in the lower staff. And sometimes that meant we had to switch it to the treble clef. That's okay. We can do that. But I think just generally speaking, it's so much easier for the pianist if the music that is played in the left hand is on the lower staff, not necessarily in the bass clef, you know, just on the lower staff. And the music that's played with the right hand is in the upper staff. It doesn't always have to be like that, but I just thought it would be easier. You can get that sheet music that I've made for you. It's in the link in the description below. This video will definitely get you started. If you'd like to work through this piece measure by measure with me, consider checking out my membership. What I love about this piece is just the D minorness of it. It's so D minor, right? And then he goes from D minor to this triad, which isn't really a triad. I mean, it's a triad in the sense of it has 3 notes, but it's a augmented triad. We don't usually hear this quality of triad very often. So he keeps going back and forth between that in the first phrase. The other thing that I just love about this piece is the triplets are always beamed together in 3s. So just assume if you've got 3 eighth notes that are beamed together, they're 3s. Notice that they're alternating hands here. And so it goes back and forth. You will have this adroitness, this adeptness at going back and forth with that 3/2 rhythm. And then what you will have done is earned a lot of hand independence. So if you're a beginner piano player, and you want that hand independence, I want my right hand to be able to do something while my left hand is doing something else. This is a great piece for that, just because you have to keep swapping back and forth between those rhythms. If you can learn just 2 measures of this piece, then the whole piece will kind of fall into place for you because that same rhythmic structure happens throughout the piece. Same thing happens in the 3rd and 4th measures. The 5th and 6th measures are the same thing, except it adds another little triplet here. So sometimes you've got a triplet. These are still 3/8 notes, but there's a little rest in between. And it just makes this last note of the measure kind of stick out a little bit. It's just not quite going to align with that last note in the right hand. So if you can practice and break things up like that in 2 measures, you can do 4 measures if you want, but always be practicing in little chunks like that. Just can't overemphasize that. Just a few tips on getting this 2/3 rhythm down. First of all, what you can do is take a pencil and just kind of sneak in where that 2nd eighth note goes. I always did this when I was first starting to learn this rhythm, and that just kind of helped me know, okay, it just sneaks in. And then the second thing you can do is use that mnemonic, who parked the car? And that's a really famous way of putting this polyrhythm together. You say the words, who parked the car? Who parked the car? Who parked the car? So the is the hardest part. It's that 2nd eighth note that fits in there is the. Who parked the car? And I know there are some of you who are just going to like mathematically want to do this. You're going to think, second eighth note is going to be like a sixth of a beat longer than the second triplet. So I have to just don't think about it like that. We're just sneaking that eighth note in, and it's close to this one. And it just has to have that lilt, right? Who parked the car? The car. That is the kind of just feeling of it. And also, honestly, it doesn't have to be exact. If you can listen to it and it feels steady to you and it sounds steady to you, that's what you're going for. We're just going for a sense of, is there a pulse to this piece? The third thing that I would do to get this triplet down is to feel the eighth notes like in your body. Just make sure you've got this heartbeat going. All the straight eighth notes. It's this heartbeat. And then I think of the triplets as being hung around that heartbeat. And there's some symbolism to this that I just love. You can hear that heartbeat. And I think of it as feeling like I'm here, but I'm really not mentally engaged in what's going on. It's kind of this daydreamy feel. So I like to think about those three tactics for getting down this 3/2 rhythm. Scriabin's music is really burny, throbby music. It's really sensual in a lot of ways, and it makes you feel, I mean, in the terms of it's very romantic, but it's also just very impressionistic. So it's almost like Chopin, but it's also almost like Debussy at times, where it's impressionistic and you get the sense of like, there's an effect here that we're going for. And so how juicy can you make these triplets? That's what I'm trying to think of, is we've got these 4-note phrases, and I just think, how expressive can you be with them? You know, there's maybe some front loading of it where we've got a dynamic that's loud and then it comes down. And you can try other expressive shapes to that. So if I play, not sure if the dynamics are coming through for you, but I was trying to shape it so that this middle note here was the loudest point. You can do things like add a little bit of time. That time I'm just like holding on to the first note a little bit. You can experiment with which note do you hold on to for a little bit. I don't like that as much. And it just gives it this uneven feel. So I was trying to hold the middle note as an experiment. I didn't like it very much. So what if you hold on to the last one? So there's like this hesitancy to go on to beat 2. Not my favorite as well, but I really love the holding on to the first note. Just hold it. This is the kind of thing that I really love to do in detail in my membership. So when I go phrase by phrase or measure by measure through a piece of music, I love to just dive into the musicality of it. How can you become expressive? And then what are the techniques that you should use to sound expressive and sound confident with that music? That is the area where my creativity just kind of comes alive. That's the part of music that I just love talking about, is why is this expressive and why is this fun? I'm not totally interested in music theory, although it's useful, and I know music theory well enough to analyze some sheet music. I'm not a play-by-ear person or an improvised person, although I do that a little bit. The part that I really love is just refining a piece of music and taking it to its most musical point. That's the approach that has been successful for me learning this instrument. It's the part that has felt the most satisfying, because at the end of it, you have the result of this beautiful piece of music written by a master composer that you can play expressively and wonderfully at the piano. When you sign up to get the sheet music, you'll also receive my newsletter where I just talk about things like this because it's exciting for me. This piece is a canon, and a canon is when you have something in strict imitation. So every time we have a melody, it is strictly imitated in the next voice. And it keeps going back and forth. Strictly imitated here. I see this sort of building of twos when we have things that go together. We've got two voices happening, and we've also have this two thing where we've got two separate rhythms. We've got a 3 against 2 every time. And then I also love that the phrase itself is a separate gesture. So we've got a scale against repeated notes. And I just find that this piece is so meta. It's a canon, it's two rhythms, it's two hands doing the same thing. It's also two gestures that are happening. The phrases come in twos as well. So you have a very sort of call and response type phrase thing happening here. So let me demonstrate that a little bit. We've got one that's almost a call or a question. Followed by a phrase that very much feels like an answer or a response. So you've got these two separate gestures that happen in the call response thing. The first call has this scale, and the response has this up kind of zigzagging melody. So in the classical sense, there might be a masculine feminine idea happening here in Scriabin's mind. I just think of it as two characters singing a duet together. So can you imagine the call and response of each phrase or each imitation in the canon as being sung by two really passionate singers? I love that Scriabin likes to take disparate ideas, low and high, or even with rhythms 3 and 2, and turns them and blends them somehow into a single thing. So I love the idea of taking 3 against 2 and just turning those two rhythms into just one idea, so it feels like this easy polyrhythm that you just kind of do. And that's why I love this as a study in polyrhythm, especially for late beginner, early intermediate piano players. So that should get you started with this piece. Don't forget to get the sheet music and check out my membership called Measure by Measure if you want a more in-depth, longer version of this kind of teaching. Okay, thanks. Bye.